Thomas Barrett sat alone at table 7, checking his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. The restaurant glowed with soft amber light, the kind that made everything look like a memory already half-formed. He was 58 years old, CEO of Barrett Industries, and hadn't been on a blind date in 30 years. His daughter had arranged this one. "Dad, you need to live a little," she'd said. The chair across from him stayed empty. Thomas sipped his water and watched couples around him, laughing, sharing desserts, holding hands across checkered tablecloths. He'd forgotten what that felt like. His wife Margaret had passed 4 years ago, and the house had been quiet ever since. "Too quiet. Excuse me, sir?" Thomas looked up. A young woman stood beside his table, maybe 23 or 24, wearing a mint green apron over a simple white blouse. Her blonde hair was pulled back, and her blue eyes held an uncertainty that made her seem younger still. "Yes?" Thomas said, more gruffly than he intended. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but—" She clutched a small notepad. "I'm training tonight, and my supervisor said I could take my dinner break, but the employee table is full and I just—" She paused, embarrassed. "Would you mind terribly if I sat here? Just for 15 minutes? I'll be very quiet." Thomas started to refuse. He'd been stood up, his pride was wounded, and he wanted to be alone in his disappointment. But something in the girl's face stopped him. She looked exhausted, hopeful, human. "Go ahead," he heard himself say. "Thank you so much." She sat down carefully, as if the chair might break. "I'm Emma Chen, Thomas Barrett." Emma's eyes widened slightly. "Barrett? Like Barrett Industries?" He nodded, waiting for the usual response. Awe, flattery, calculation. But Emma just smiled, a genuine, tired smile. "My mom used to work in one of your warehouses," she said, before she got sick. "She said you came through one day and actually learned everyone's name," Thomas remembered. 15 years ago, maybe longer. "Is your mother?" "She passed last year." Emma's voice stayed steady, but Thomas heard the effort it took. "Cancer. That's why I'm working 3 jobs right now. The medical bills, they just—" She shook her head. "I'm sorry." "You don't need to hear this." "No," Thomas said quietly. "Please continue," and she did. Over the next hour, as Thomas's forgotten blind date became irrelevant, Emma told him about her life. How she'd dropped out of college to care for her mother. How she waitressed here at night, worked at a coffee shop in the morning, and did freelance bookkeeping whenever she could. How she lived in a studio apartment with a radiator that only worked sometimes. Thomas listened. Really listened. It had been so long since he'd had a real conversation with someone who wasn't trying to impress him or sell him something. "What about you?" Emma asked after the waiter, her co-worker, brought them both coffee on the house. "Why are you here alone? If you don't mind me asking?" Thomas found himself telling the truth. About Margaret. About the loneliness. About his daughter's misguided matchmaking attempts. About how he'd built a successful company but somehow let his life become smaller and smaller until it was just work and an empty house. "That sounds hard," Emma said simply. No platitudes, no advice. Just acknowledgement. When Emma's break ended, she stood to go. "Thank you for letting me sit. And for listening about my mom. I don't really have anyone to talk to about her anymore." Thomas reached into his jacket and pulled out his wallet. Emma stepped back, shaking her head. "No, please, I wasn't asking for—" "I know," Thomas said. "But humor an old man. My daughter wrapped this birthday gift for me last week. I told her I didn't need anything, but she insisted." He picked up the gold-wrapped box from the empty chair beside him, the gift his daughter had brought to his office, hoping he'd have someone to share his birthday dinner with. "I'd like you to have it." "I can't accept—" "Emma?" Thomas's voice was gentle. "Sometimes kindness is a circle. Your mother's kindness made an impression on me years ago. Your kindness tonight reminded me what matters. Please, let me complete the circle." Emma took the box with trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered. 3 weeks later, Thomas received a letter at his office. Emma's handwriting was careful, educated. "Dear Mr. Barrett, inside your gift was a check that changed my life. I've paid off my mother's medical debt, enrolled back in school for accounting, and put the rest in savings. But the real gift was our conversation. You helped me remember that kindness still exists. That people still see each other. I hope you know you're not alone. And I hope you find what you're looking for. With gratitude, Emma Thomas read the letter twice, then called his daughter. Dad? She sounded surprised. Is everything okay? Better than okay, Thomas said. I'm thinking of starting a scholarship fund for students who had to leave school for family reasons. Would you help me set it up? His daughter was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. Mom would love that. Yes, Thomas said, looking at Emma's letter. Yes, she would. That evening, Thomas went back to the restaurant. Emma wasn't working, but he left an envelope with the hostess. Inside was a simple card. Thank you for reminding me that the best gifts are the ones we give away. Thomas, sometimes the life we're looking for finds us when we're looking for something else entirely. Sometimes a 15-minute conversation changes everything, and sometimes the emptiest chair becomes the most important one. Thomas Barrett learned that at 58, alone at table 7, when a poor girl sat down by mistake and reminded a cold CEO that his heart still worked, that it could still give, that it was never too late for kindness.